I'm Kara Alloway, and I'm so excited to be joining Cami Simmons on her podcast. We're talking all things reality television. We're talking about my debut novel, Most Hated. And we need you to tune in and listen because it's not a party if you're not there.
Hello, hello. It's your girl, Cami Simmons here, right here on First Class TV on Roku, as well as Hits 92.3. And today we have another special guest in the building. She is the cast member of Real Housewives of Toronto franchise. She's also an author of a newly published novel titled Most Hated, When Real Life Blends Reality TV, y'all. Story, TV writer, producer, boss, Kara Alloway is joining us all the way from Toronto. Hey, Kara.
Hi, Cami. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming. How you doing?
Doing well, doing very well. Thank you. How about yourself?
Good. I'm good. I'm glad that it is springtime. I'm glad that the warm weather is finally upon us, so I can't complain.
Same. We had a little bit of a fake spring in Toronto, and it was gorgeous and warm and 90 degrees and beautiful, and now it's back to being cold. The sun's out, but it's cold.
Yes. It's always
But
like
it's
that
coming.
around this
It's
time.
coming. Spring is coming. I am hopeful. I'm not having a fatalistic view.
Yes. Well, I'm so excited to get into your novel and excited to get into your story and just who you are and the true trendsetter that you are. And so excited to have you in the Trensetta Lounge checking in with us. And so let's get right to it. Tell us about your novel that's going to be soonly published come May 30th.
Well, thank you. So the title is Most Hated, and it is a novel, which I like to tell people because the first question a lot of people say is, "Ooh, is this a tell-all about, your experience on reality television?" I'm like, no, I can assure you, this book is not a calculated tell-all. There are no characters in the story that you would look at and say, "Oh, I think that's this person from this version of Housewives or from this franchise of Housewives, or this is this person from her show." So it is not a calculated tell-all. I will say that a lot of the emotions and feelings that I experienced during the arc of my time on the show did help to inform a lot of the characterization in the book. And I do give a peek behind the curtain at the experience of filming reality television, as well as what goes on behind the scenes from a production standpoint of reality television. But I still work as a producer in this world. So it's not, I'm not selling anybody down the river or anything like that. It's a fun book. It's a light book, but there are layers to it. And when people say to me, "Oh, I read it and I laughed out loud," but it actually really got me thinking. I delve into what is known as internalized female misogyny. That's a mouthful. Internalized female misogyny, which before I had experienced it myself, I didn't know there was actually a term to it, but it's what we refer to microaggressions that women carry out on other women,
Right.
when there's bad stuff happening. And actually, in order to inform a lot of the characterization in my book, I did research, and one of the books I read was by Dr. Phyllis Chesler. She wrote a book called Woman's Inhumanity to Woman, and it's a nonfiction research book. She spent many, many years researching it. And, I consider myself a second generation feminist, so I tread very carefully here because it's a little bit of friendly fire. As women, we don't really like to talk about the sisterhood and the flaws within the sisterhood, but there are flaws. And there is something that goes on. You're shaking your head, so I get the feeling like you could relate to this. But the internalized female misogyny, when a woman, takes out these microaggressions on another woman, and when it starts actually at age 8, if you can imagine, in the playground.
Wow.
It starts because we are very, as a society, we're very tribal, and there is a pecking order, and the independent thinkers and the ones that don't necessarily agree with the hierarchy and the pecking order among girls. And I'm talking 8-year-old girls here. Okay. So I'm not talking, politicians or anything like that. These are 8-year-old girls in the playground. The ones that don't agree experience these microaggressions in the form of shunning, slandering, gossiping. The free thinkers are penalized. And it's amazing to me because it's not the little boys who are penalizing the free thinking girls. It's the other little girls.
Wow.
So I delve into that in the book, how this continues on through our life and then manifests itself as adult women. And, it's, again, my book is light. It's fun. It's funny. It's a little look at reality television, but there are layers to it.
Right. Now let's pivot back a little bit and go back a couple of chapters since you are talking about eight year old girls. Can you tell us who you were on the playground, Kara? Like what was your persona? Who were you? And can you just like paint that picture for us?
That's a great question, actually. Um, I would confess to you that I don't think I was much of an independent thinker. I think I went
Mm,
along with the group. And you know what's really
mhm.
interesting about that? I think I'm going to have to lie down on my psychiatrist couch here for a second, Cami. What's interesting about that is I can remember being on a swing set beside another little girl on the swing set who was an independent thinker, and I observed
Mhm,
all this. I think that's
mm,
what makes me a good storyteller is I spend a lot of time observing. But I can
mhm,
remember being on the swing set, and there was another girl beside me on the swing set who was very much an independent thinker. And one of the
mhm,
group leaders did not like that this girl was not cooperating with the group and going along with the group. So I can remember
mm,
she stuck a stick in an apple that had fallen off a tree and it was in mud,
mhm,
and she held it out. So every time this girl would swing forward, it would come very close to her face.
mhm.
And the next year, that little girl left the school, if you can imagine.
Oh
So, and
wow,
I can
yeah.
remember sitting there. I'm actually getting chills telling you this story. I haven't shared this story in a long time, but it sat with me because I remember
Mhm,
sitting there and observing this and
mm,
thinking, mm-mm, this isn't right. So who was I on the playground? I don't think I became an independent thinker until I observed a lot of um, I guess you'd call it mistreatment of other girls and whatnot. I think I was one of the silent people, and then observing this, I began to formulate this isn't right
mhm.
and whatnot.
Was there a pivotal person, either maybe another student who was like that don't take any mess, type of, student that maybe have influenced you, or maybe there was a teacher? When was that turning point? Or maybe it was down the line in high school or in college when you said, I'm gonna take all this information, like you said, that you observed as an 8-year-old child on the playground and then said, I'm gonna do something about it. I'm gonna speak truth to power. When was that turning point for you?
I think that there was a girl that I met in high school
Mhm.
who did not, I like to use the expression, she didn't suffer fools. And
Mm.
she was very much for that reason, again, which is so wrong in our society that the independent thinkers and the truth tellers tend to be the loners. She was very much a
Mm.
loner, but I can remember listening to her deliver a speech in a class and
Mhm.
thinking, oh, wow, I want to be as bold as this one. I want to be able to stand up and speak, and what she said resonated with me, and her speech was not on, anything incredibly controversial or pivotal, but what
Mhm.
what she was able to convey was her passion about what she was speaking about. I
Mm.
think she was actually talking about something about the price of how much we were paying for lunch in the cafeteria or something crazy like that, but she
Of
was
course.
so emotional about it, but not in, not in a frivolous way. She was just so convicted that I
Mhm.
looked at that and I went, wow, I want that. That is
Mm.
amazing. I want to have an impact like that on people. I want to
Mhm.
stand for something. Like Katy Perry says, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything.
Mhm.
And I can remember thinking like, I want what she has.
Mm. So speaking of just having those influences in your life, you being a mom and also an author and a media personality and a reality star, how do you balance it all?
When I find out, I will let you know. I have to tell you, when I was writing this book, there were many nights that I would sit there and, as a woman, it's interesting. I have all boys in my household, and there's my husband, and they are incredibly supportive. My kids are amazing cooks. They are
Mhm,
very resourceful. But I can tell you that as a woman, there would be nights, when people would be getting home from school and whatnot, and I would stand up and look at them and say, "Hi, there's no dinner." So,
mm.
what are we going to do here? Because I didn't make dinner. My boys are so amazing. They would hop to and get it done. It's funny because I still carry, so much of that mom guilt because you feel like, but I'm supposed to do this. I'm the mom, very much so the same way my husband, if I take out the garbage, he goes, "What are you doing? That's my job." And I'm like, seriously, are we really there right now? Come on. But I think because certain roles get ingrained into you, and also there's an amount of caregiving as a mom Um,
Hmm.
but it's tough. It's really tough to balance. And I think the first step in balancing it is losing the guilt. Because I always say to my kids, guilt is a wasted emotion. What does it do? What purpose does it serve? It doesn't
Hmm.
serve any positivity. You have to balance as best you can, and you have to be incredibly transparent in your shortcomings. And that's what I try to do with my family all the time. I call it the Kara Alloway apology show because I think
Hmm.
it's really important that I apologize to my kids. I think it's really important that they see my humanity, that they see I mess up, but that I also accept that I have messed up. And I'm not just talking about, if I can't get it together to get dinner. I'm talking about if I'm, stressed. When I was writing this book, I had to get into the weeds a couple
Hmm.
times with, some of
Hmm.
reliving some dark stuff. And I would,
Hmm.
that hurt people is so true because I would stand up from
Right.
writing and I would just be in a bad mood for no good reason because it was there.
Mm.
But I think that my long-winded answer to your really good question is how do you balance it? You're honest and humble, and nobody is perfect, and you accept that, and you just try your best.
Wow. Well, we are getting in this candid conversation with Kara Alloway, author of Most Hated novel, coming out May 30th to an Amazon online platform near you. And next, we're going to be talking about a little bit more about how did she get her inspiration behind the book, as well as how you could get in on the book. And we're also going to be talking about how she got her start into being a TV producer, a media personality, and just an all-around media boss. So make sure you stay tuned right here with your girl, Cami Simmons, right here on the Trensetta Lounge, right here with Kara Alloway. We'll be right back with more. Stay tuned. Hey, it's your girl, Cami Simmons here, right here on the Trensetta Lounge, and we are joined by the one and only TV personality, media personality, author of Most Hated, coming out or not January. I'm going way above the calendar, you guys. May 30th on Amazon.com. We have Kara Alloway tuning in all the way from Toronto. Hey, Kara.
Hey, Cammy, can you come and live with me? And every morning when I come down the stairs in the morning, can you introduce me, please? Oh my goodness,
Absolutely.
you are amazing. I want to walk in a room and have that every time.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. That's what we strive to do over here on the Trensetta Lounge. Just give people that dosage of inspo and inspiration we know they need and want. So thank you. I appreciate it. So let's get into how you got into being a TV producer, media personality. I mean, you do it all. You're definitely what I would call a media boss. How did you start?
How did I start? Well, I took English literature in university. And as I said before, I was always a storyteller. So I always loved to tell stories, to hear stories, to read. And after university, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I actually moved to Beverly Hills because I knew it was very popular when I graduated university for students to go to Europe and travel around Europe and, fly and take the train and explore different cities and live in youth hostels and things like that. But I really didn't feel like doing that. I wanted to go somewhere warm and sunny. And I love what they say about, Los Angeles. Every day is a beautiful day. And when every day is a beautiful day, that's why it's the movie making capital of the world. But when every day is a beautiful day, it's really nice to wake up to that when weather isn't a factor. So I moved there and I actually got a job as a private party coordinator in a really upmarket Beverly Hills posh restaurant where, the ladies that lunched. And you name it, they were in there. The editors of many magazines, many Hollywood celebrities, wives of, Buzz Aldrin and his wife would come in. It was crazy. The people that came in, it was amazing. Kathy Lee was pushing little Cody in a stroller in there, and you name it, they were in there. And one of the clients that we had was the publishing company Condé Nast, and they would have a party every month to celebrate whoever the cover person was on Vanity Fair. And I would arrange the party as the private party coordinator. And in doing so, I got to know the staff at Condé Nast, and they said we have this new magazine that started, because I would always express to them how I thought it was so fascinating to write for a magazine, and I always wanted to do that. And they said we have a new magazine that's starting. It's called Allure magazine, and actually we're hiring if you want to send us some samples of your writing. Well, I had never been a
Hmm.
published writer. I had studied, as I said, literature in university. So I called my mom. This was before the internet. Said, Mom, quick, I need you to send me some copies of my essays. They're in my room. This is where you'll find them. So she mailed them off to me, and I mailed in an essay. Hamlet's fatal flaw of procrastination.
Oh,
And
wow.
I sent it to the office at Condé Nast, and they called me and they said, "This is hilarious. You know, at first we thought this was a joke, and then we read it. It's a good essay, but you know what? We kind of like you, and you're an individual and obviously a very free thinker. Come and interview." So I interviewed and I got that job. And so I
Wow.
became the assistant West Coast editor at Allure magazine, which was such a great place to work because not only just working for Condé Nast, because it's such a great company, and it was so cool the way every magazine, the people that worked there were defined by the magazine. So, for example, the girls that worked at the fitness magazine were always in workout clothes with their hair in a ponytail, and they had, great muscle physiques and whatnot. And the girls that worked at Vogue were so cool. And they were the ones like in high school that would have like the cigarettes in the hallway and stuff. And then we worked at Allure magazine. So we were always up on, these are the latest moisturizers. We had the whitest teeth because we had all the teeth whitening products being sent to us and stuff. And it was a really fun place to work.
Yeah.
Anyway, so and the mandate for that magazine was taking a journalistic approach to the
Okay.
topics of fashion beauty, which before then had not happened. So
Hmm.
that was my foray into magazines and writing as a published author.
Wow. So, what would be some tips and advice if you could do it all again? And it's you've done an amazing job up until now, but for those 20 somethings, or even for those who, say, hey, I want to make a pivot into the media, entertainment, and journalism industry, what would be some of your tips of advice? What would be some of those jewels that you would share with them?
I would say first and foremost, write, 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 write. Do not stop writing and do not stop reading. Reading makes writers better writers. So that
Hmm.
first and foremost. Also, write in any capacity you can. Now with the internet and whatnot, there's so many platforms that you can get published on. Start your own blog, get writing there. Just keep writing. Find the places that are hiring. There's so many opportunities for freelance writers, freelance authors, whatnot. Keep doing that. At the same time, keep your eye on the prize and be tenacious. Somebody said to me, "What's your superpower?" once, and I said, "I am a dog with a bone. I am so tenacious." When I was going for that allure position, what I didn't mention to you was I thought, I've never done this before and I don't know these people. I'm going to call
Hmm.
them every day and bug them. What's the worst
Hmm.
that can happen? They'll say to me, "Stop calling. We'll let you know." What's the best
Hmm.
that can happen? They'll go, "Wow, this girl must really want the job." And for the other 50 people that put their resumes and writing samples in that aren't calling every day, they're going to remember my name because they're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, who is that girl?" So I did it. I did my little experiment. I called every day. After 2 weeks, they called me in and said, all right, come in, come in, come in." So I would say, do not lose tenacity. If you don't have tenacity, grow it. If
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
are working at growing it, fake it till you make it. You can do it. I tell my kids that all the time. People tend to be so embarrassed and I don't want to bug people, and I
Hmm.
and you do have to be polite and respectful to the parameters of a job you're applying for, but at the
Hmm.
same time, you can be tenacious. So I would say I think that goes a long way. But just
Hmm.
you have to write. Someone once said to me when I used to be a child actress and I was considering going into acting, and they said, "Well, Kara, you can't be an actress saying Shakespeare to a flower in a field. You can't be a writer, sitting in your basement just writing Dear Diary," that sort of
Right.
thing, writing in your journal.
Right.
You've got to write, you've got to get published. As I said, there are so many opportunities now for young writers to get published, and
Hmm.
eventually someone is going to notice you because you're going to be putting yourself out there, and be your own best advocate. Believe in yourself.
Hmm.
And even if nobody else believes in you, believe in yourself and keep your eye on the target. Definitely have goals and write your goals down. I think that's also very important that you write your goals down. I want to be
Yeah.
working in this capacity by this point in my life. I want to be doing this. So that when
Hmm.
you reach that point, if you haven't reached that goal, okay, you can reset. But I think a timeline is very important that you can,
Yeah.
see and give yourself space. Be realistic, not within a month I want to be an anchor on CBS News. Be realistic about it.
Hmm.
But and read. People
Yes.
really need to read. And it's interesting because as a mom, I go through arcs in my life of reading and
Hmm.
not reading. I like to read a book holding a book in my hand. I'm not an
Hmm.
e-reader or a digital reader. But I do
Mm.
notice that when I am reading, my vocabulary
Hmm.
picks up. Somebody once told me, a friend of mine that homeschooled her kids, she
Hmm.
said, "I'm not too worried about all of the other subjects aside from reading, because reading helps you with math, because the cadence in reading, if you can even
Hmm.
imagine, helps young children with math. Reading
Mm-hmm.
helps you obviously with your vocabulary, with
Mm-hmm.
spelling, with grammar. It helps a lot with anxiety because especially if you're reading fiction, you get yourself
Mm-hmm.
immersed in someone else's
Right.
problems and issues, and your problems and issues are a world away.
Right.
So I can't say enough. I'm such a reading advocate. I think it's so important.
Right. What, speaking of reading, what are you reading currently, if anything? And what podcasts are you listening to, if any?
So it's very interesting. You should ask that. I am I'm stuck in the middle of a book. It's a Ruth Ware. She's a novelist I love. They call her the modern day Agatha Christie. She wrote a book called It Girl. And as I said, reading alleviates anxiety. But in
Hmm.
preparation for my book launch, I have a ton of anxiety. And I have a hard time reading when I'm anxious because I'll read a line and then my mind wanders and I forget. And I go back again. I go, wait, I forget what I just read. And especially in her
Hmm.
thriller novels, you have to be on top of it because you're always looking for clues and what's going on and whatnot. But I am reading It Girl. I absolutely love it. I love Ruth Ware. If you like mysteries, she writes the kind of books. I will be in my room reading one of her books, and someone will walk in the room, and I will jump so high because I
Hmm.
get so caught up in it. And she's so fantastic at creating the scene and drawing you in, and it's quiet. And oh my gosh, you're like, what's going to happen? And you know something's going to happen. It's so great. I love that. I love a good book like that. So I am working my way through that right now.
I love it. I love it. Definitely
It's
shows
great.
all of the thought process and just how you not only have self-development, but also how you feed yourself with different things that definitely have reflected in the professional world that you're in. So thank you for sharing that. I also want to play a quick game we like to call over
Ooh.
here in the Trensetta Lounge called I Got a Question. So I got a few questions for you. And it's basically a lightning round of questions. So I'll give you some questions and then you give me your answer and then let me know real quick why you chose that answer.
Okay.
So, what is the craziest DM you've ever had, if any?
Somebody wrote about this recently. I just said it jokingly, but somebody offered to be my sugar daddy.
Oh, okay.
But it was for $5,000 a week. So I laughed and I showed it to my husband and I said like, "Oh my gosh." And then I said, "It's going to cost a lot more than $5,000 a week if you want to be
Right,
my sugar daddy." And we both laughed
right.
about it. But I think that was probably the craziest idea.
All right. Wow, interesting. What is your biggest pet peeve if you have any? And it could be it could be the silliest pet peeve.
You know what it is? It's gossip. I hate gossip. If
Mm,
I could start a motion, we've eliminated a lot of toxic words from our vocabulary as a society. If I could
mm,
start a movement, it would be to eliminate gossip so that even starting with young people, the second someone started to gossip with you, you were like, no, walk away.
mm,
You want to have something to say it to that person.
mm.
Gossip is nothing good ever comes of gossip in a
Yes.
small capacity all the way up to like large, bigger capacities.
Okay, I love that. And switching gears, who is your celebrity crush if you had to choose one?
Who do I love? I really like Reese Witherspoon. I love things that she's in. I also like Brie Larson.
Okay.
If we're talking male celebrity crushes, well, my husband is the love of my life, but
Of
I
course.
also who else? I'm trying to think of who else I like. I'm like a sucker. Like I liked old actors like Gene Hackman and people like that. I have such
Mhm,
respect for people who like have a craft and who can become characters
mhm.
and things like that. Who else
Okay.
is my celebrity crush? I have a lot. I'm doing a bad job at this lightning round because I'm not thinking fast on my feet because I do have celebrity. I love
Oh
Zoe
no, you
Saldana.
got this.
Oh my gosh,
Oh,
Zoe
that's a good one.
Saldana.
Okay.
I shared a bathroom mirror with her once in Los
Really?
Angeles. Can I just say, when you go to the bathroom, when you go to fix your makeup and you look beside you and Zoe Saldana is there, radiant is the word that comes to mind.
Oh.
She is stunning. And so I looked and I laughed and I went, okay, no, I'm not fixing my makeup. And she sort of stood and she looked at me and she said, why? And I said, do you think I want to stand beside you in the mirror? And she was so sweet and she hugged me and she said, come on, girl, you're
Oh,
beautiful. Oh, I love her.
oh. And what's the last thing you Googled?
How to mix a cocktail.
Okay, that's not bad.
I was looking for a cocktail recipe. Hey, full disclosure, Cami. I was looking for a cocktail recipe for a French martini. So
Ooh.
I
Okay, I've never had
know.
a French martini. That sounds good though.
It's interesting. It's a very interesting cocktail.
Nice. All righty. So let's get into how you got started, or we already talked about your publishing, but how did you get started in reality TV? What did that look like? Did you know you always wanted to be in reality television? Did it fall upon your lap? I mean, you were already in media, but can you let the folks know a little bit more about what that journey looked like for you?
Getting into reality television was a really twisty road for me, actually, because again, as a storyteller, I wanted to produce reality
Mm-hmm.
television from the beginning, and I sort of took a side turn. I got on an exit ramp and I had to get back on the highway.
Mm-hmm.
I had pitched the idea for a show that dealt with celebrity planners for charity events and weddings and things like that. And it was, in my head, I was calling it Sweet Charity because I thought it would be like $1 million listing except for charity event planners.
Mm-hmm.
So I pitched it to the production company actually that ended up doing Toronto Housewives. And they
Okay.
bought the rights for a while and then that expired. And they came back to me and they said, look, maybe you want to do Toronto Housewives and that can act like a spin-off or a sizzle, sort of the way Lisa Vanderpump did Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and then she went on for Vanderpump Rules. And
Mm-hmm.
I can remember thinking about that, but then thinking, but wait, I want to produce this. I don't want to be in it. But I really didn't know what I was doing at the time. I just had an idea. I had no exposure to reality television. I had friends that had done some of the Real Housewives franchise in Beverly Hills, and I had, seen them, and they seemed to enjoy it. I know it came with a
Mm-hmm.
lot of anxiety and a lot of, negative feedback from trolls and things like that. But at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
they seemed to enjoy it. So I thought, you know what? I'm up for anything. I love traveling to exotic places. I love, trying new foods. Why not try reality television? So I actually had a hand in helping cast Real Housewives of Toronto because it was
Wow.
challenging. When you're casting reality television, first
Mm-hmm.
of all, everybody immediately puts their guard up. Who wants to exploit me? I don't want to tell all my stories. I have skeletons in my closet. And Toronto
Mm-hmm.
itself is a very conservative city. So I think that was ultra challenging to cast. But also, just because someone lives a fabulous life doesn't necessarily mean they have TVQ.
Mm-hmm.
So the production company came to me and asked if they could have some names of my friends and whatnot, which I talked to my friends and shared those. But either the friends didn't want to do the show or they didn't have the TVQ or sort of a combination of both. They weren't, really thrilled with what the participant agreement involved in signing it. So they had the cast together and they came back again to me and they said, we need one more person. And actually, I was responsible for bringing another person to the show because I said, look, she's not a traditional housewife type, but I think she has a big personality and I think she would
Mm-hmm.
be good for reality television. So
Mm-hmm.
then away I went. And that was the beginning of my reality television career.
I see. Well, thank you for taking us behind the scenes on reality TV because, for the most part, a lot of people watch it, but they don't know all of the intertwines and everything that goes into producing something like that. I have a question because I feel like we are in this age where it's an informational age, but we also live in an age where a lot of shows, sometimes even reality shows, have been picked up from folks who are making their mark in the digital world, whether it's them having um, a sample of a series that they put as a web series online, and then it gets picked up for different media outlets to then, continue to produce it and make it even bigger. What are your thoughts on how that may be in the reality world? Do you think we will get to a place where producers and executives are looking on social media to get show ideas, or do you think the traditional pitch is still going to be pivotal if
Well,
someone wants to,
it's
go
a
that
good
route?
it's a good question. That's actually a really good and relevant question. It's a little bit of both. Back in the day, somebody said to me, it could be anything from a news article that you see on the internet. One of my shows that are in development right now, it's Extreme Foodies. It came from a news article that I read in the London Times about this group of
Mm,
5 people that, travel the world looking for the extreme foodie experience.
mhm,
So, yes, in answer to your question, I think that producers are always scouting the internet to see like, who's on YouTube channels are huge.
mhm,
A producer that I work with, would say if one time I brought him some young girls and he said, I don't think they're quite ready yet, but what I think they should do is get a YouTube channel going, get
mm,
followers, get traction that way. Unfortunately, right now, a lot of the casting with reality television, if you're looking to pitch a show that's uniquely starring you, the first
mhm,
thing producers and networks will do is look at follower count, which I hate because I hate to put merit
mhm,
on something as frivolous as follower count, but they do look at that. They want to see what traction you're getting in social media. That being said, if you have a unique group of people that you know of, or you're part of a unique group
Mm,
of people, that's very definitely worth a pitch to a
mhm,
production company, just because I think if it's real, and if it's a genuine organic group of people that are interacting, that you think, oh, there's entertainment value to this, and I think these people have TBQ, as what I refer to. They have big personalities. You always
mhm,
need a combination of a number of things. So you need someone who's highly emotionally intelligent, which was sometimes translates to be the villain. After we wrapped Housewives, I got a
mhm,
chance to look at my
mhm,
psychological evaluation from before the show started. And the first line said, Kara Alloway has a very high emotional intelligence. And I went, oh my goodness, I know that means I'm the villain, because I had sat in on a casting session with Jonathan Murray, who did The Real World and, numerous other shows. He's like the godfather of reality television. And he said, when you cast a villain, you want someone with a high emotional intelligence. You want someone who is an independent thinker. And so I checked all those boxes. I was like, oh boy, I'm the villain. But anyway, back to your question. So when you're looking at, your group of people, do you have someone who is a free, independent thinker? Um,
mhm.
Also known as the zero F's character. I'm not going to say that word because my mom will watch this, but you want the person that literally, I use like Bethany Frankel sort of as an example, sort of the one that tells it as it is and doesn't really have a
Mhm,
filter.
mhm,
You want someone like that, but you don't want everybody to be like that, and you want
mhm,
the interactions among the people that you're looking at to be organic. So for
mhm,
example, for my charity show, I couldn't get people that weren't actually charity planners, that didn't have skin in the game, and say, oh, we're going to do a show with you. You need
mhm.
people that organically interact, and that organically this is their life, and
I
then
see.
you put this sort of reality television umbrella on top of that, as it were.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. And also, how does it feel to be a villain in a reality show? And was that thought out, or how did that go about?
So it was not thought out nor anticipated by myself. I mean, I think sort of nobody really wants to be the villain, as much as we might say, oh, I love being the villain. It's great. It's so much fun. The
Mm-hmm.
reality is, especially for myself, I went into this show as a pleaser. I like to say I'm a converted pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
no longer I no longer identify as a pleaser, simply because I realized through the course of the show and afterwards that while I thought, oh, it's so nice to say I'm a pleaser,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of personality has a lot of vanity wrapped up with it, just in the
Mm-hmm.
sense of, as a pleaser, sure, you might say you want everybody to be happy, but at the same time, you want everybody to like you. That being said,
Mm-hmm.
you go into a reality show, you're being on television, and you want people to like you. Yes, you
Of
you
course.
realize you're there for a job to get done, to entertain, but you want people to like you. So when
Mm-hmm.
I realized that I was going to be the villain, and actually I don't think it really rung true with me until I was at a production meeting with one of the producers, and she very frivolously said off the cuff, well, there's always season 2 for redemption. And I can remember I stopped and I thought, wait, redemption? Oh, because I'm the villain who needs redemption. Okay. And at that point, I realized, oh my goodness, I'm coming off as the villain in this. And that was before the show had aired or anything.
Okay.
So by that point, though, it was all in the can, so to speak. So there wasn't too much I could do. And so I thought,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you know what? Own it. I mean, I made a lot of choices during filming, things that were set out. And I get into this in my book. Just I give a peek behind that curtain of what goes on
Mm-hmm.
with reality television. And people love to say, oh, is it scripted or is it really you? It is
Mm-hmm.
not scripted at all, at all. I have to start by saying that. It is not. That being
Mm-hmm.
said, it's a lot like if you've ever studied theater, improvisation.
Yep.
So a producer will give you a setup and say, today you're going to meet this person, and the two of you will be having your hair done together or having a manicure, say, for example. And
Mm-hmm.
during the course of the manicure, she is going to invite you to a cocktail party at her house. We'd like you to
Mm-hmm.
say yes. It's up to you, but we'd like you to say yes, obviously, because we'll be filming.
Mm-hmm.
But go in, and it's funny because when you arrive to film this scene, the two of you arrive at say, the manicure salon. You get mic'd up. It's a lot like a boxing match. You get mic'd up. You see her across the way
Oh
or
wow.
down the street. They keep you apart. So you don't greet each other. Like you might, make eye contact or nod or
Mhm.
something. Or if you're angry with each other, you don't look at each other.
Mhm.
And the adrenaline starts pumping. Think there's a
Mm.
lot of cameras around. There's a guy with a boom. You're wearing your mic pack. And then maybe just before you go to film, the producer taps you on the shoulder and says, "Okay, so now you know what you're going to do. And by the way, the whole
Mhm.
business that she's been saying to the other ladies about you, put that behind you. Don't even think about it." And you're like, "Wait, wait, 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 what?" And then they
Mhm.
go. So you go in. So this is in the back of your head, and you're
Oh,
thinking,
wow.
"Wait, what was she saying about me? What the heck? What's going on?" And
Oh my
yeah, it's
gosh.
a lot because what you think you forget as a participant in reality television is, and the audience probably doesn't realize this either. You're so focused on your story, like this is
Mhm.
my story, that you forget that there's five other people who have
Yep.
stories that are going on as well. And
Yep.
there's, five you it's like a juggling sort of thing. There's a lot of these little whirlpools going on around. So, oh, how does my story figure into her story? And
Mhm.
it's very complicated in that way. So as I say in my book, I delve into that and I do give a peek behind the curtain of how it works, how, when you first start with the show, you sit down and the story editor, who nobody
Mhm.
ever sees, the story editor is like the wizard behind the curtain. Nobody ever sees or meets the story editor, but it's his job to weave everything together and to tell the
Right.
story. So
Right.
he says, "Kara, what's going on? We're going to be filming for the next 4 months over the summer. What are your plans for the summer? Any family birthday parties you're going to be hosting? Any charity events? Or any, what are you planning on doing for the summer?
Mhm.
Are you getting a puppy? Are you having a baby? Like,
Mhm.
what are you doing? What are your plans?" And you literally vomit onto a email your plans. This is what I'm going to be
Wow.
doing. You lay it out.
Okay.
So then looking at that, they sort of say, "Okay, so Kara's husband has a birthday. Kara, would you want to hold a birthday party for your husband and invite all the other castmates and then we could film that?" So they get
Mhm.
the events there, and the talent producer and the story editor work together to say this, this, this. And then
Mhm.
once you start filming, based on the trajectory of what you're filming, that's when the talent producer and the story editor come in and go, "Okay, so at that first
Mhm.
cocktail party, you didn't rub very well with Olivia and Stephanie. So we're going to have a
Mhm.
scene with, let's shoot a scene with Olivia and Stephanie talking about Kara over here and what they
Mhm.
thought about her." So they're
Mhm.
in there sort of, it's not scripted, it's not manipulated, but they're
Mhm.
very keenly aware of the dynamics going on in the action
Mhm.
and how they can take the dynamics and create a story. Because at the end of the day, reality television is art, it's storytelling,
Right.
and you want to tell a
Entertainment.
story and entertain.
Right. Right. Wow. That's a lot that goes into a lot of pre-planning, that I think a lot of people don't see because, of course, like you say, they see that finished product, they see that finished piece of package, as we call it news, but that final piece, in the reality world. So I'm just also curious when you brought up a good point about having to tell the producers about your plans and everything that you have planned out. Did that affect the way that you laid out your business? I think sometimes when people go into reality television, sometimes they might not think of the long game. Was that in the back of your mind just coming from a business standpoint? And how did that affect just how you went about just planning overall so that you could be able to create something sustainable after, such as your book and just other ventures that you may not have thought about, prior to going into casting?
So that is interesting because reality television is a lot of things, but what it really is a fabulous platform for marketing if
Mhm.
you want to market something. So I went into the show personally. I knew I always wanted to write a book. I knew it would be about female friendships. I didn't know
Mhm.
what the backdrop would be, and I didn't realize that I would be using reality television as the backdrop until I did the show. And then in that sense, I said,
Mm.
"Oh, no, this is what it's got to be." Was I thinking of that when I was telling them what I was doing? Absolutely not. But my brand
Mhm.
and what I was promoting were some of the charities that I work for.
Mm.
So, yes, in answer to your question, going in, I knew that there was a big charity event that would be
Mhm.
happening around the time filming would be culminating to the end of it. So I said to them, "Look, I'm on the committee for this Ambi Gala. I think it would be great to give the gala publicity, to give the charity publicity. I think we could get some big characters and some of the other members of the committee. It would be fun
Mhm.
if my story was trying to sell my castmates on this charity and to sell them a table at the charity and to bring the charity as much as possible into the limelight." Yikes, did that ever backfire, because I became the horrible woman who cared nothing about the people and only about getting their money to get them to the charity. And I can remember I kept saying, but it's not about me, it's about the kids, it's about the
Right.
kids and the charity. But I did not do a good job at conveying that on film. But so yes, in answer to your question, I did have that in the back of my mind. And I know for a
Mhm.
fact that other cast members who had businesses that they wanted to promote, same thing. I mean, we were all in there promoting what we wanted to promote. My brand just happened to be charity. And thinking also, well, sweet charity, which is not, it's now called Dallas Planners Club, but my reality show, I thought, if I want to do a reality show about charity, I better have something charity front and center. So that's why I
Of
did that. So
course.
that's, nobody's ever asked me that before, Cami. That's a great question. It's
Yes, we
interesting
have to
because
know.
you do, when you go into reality television, it's such a great platform, such a great marketing opportunity. You better have something that you want to brand or that you want to sell, because otherwise you're just kind of sitting around.
Right, right. And I love that you went in there with intention and purpose, even though you discovered another side of your story, because at the end of the day, we're evolving as humans. So you were able to go in there, you were able to learn about yourself, and that just became a part of your platform, which I think speaks volumes to just your story becoming like full circle. So I think that's really interesting that even how your book now is a reflection of not only how you were, on that child as a child on the playground, but also how that translates into being adults and just to living life, out here, even on platforms like reality TV. So I think that's really cool.
Absolutely.
Also, we have to know if you're still friends with your castmates. But first, before we get to that, I want to know, how did this reality show impact your business, your brand, and then also just your family life?
So family life was interesting. None of my family wanted to be involved. My family are very private people. My husband and my kids said, not for us. Good luck to you, but we don't
Uh-uh.
want to be involved, which I could understand. It was my gig, it wasn't theirs. Mind you, after I came home from the first night of filming, my poor dear husband was asleep. And I tell this story. I say, he was sound asleep, and I shook his shoulders and I said, wake up, wake up, wake up. I need you to come on this show. Because I could tell from that first night that I did not have an ally in this group of
Mhm.
women. And I thought, if I don't have an ally, how am I going to tell my narrative? How am I going to tell my story? There's going to be no
Right.
platform for me to do that. So
Mhm.
he came on to be my, I don't want to say fall guy, but he came on to be my, you know how a talk show host has the guy on the sofa? My
Yep.
husband was my guy on the sofa that I could say, well, this happened today. And it's so funny because in one of the scenes that we were doing that, the producer said, okay, Kara, you and your husband are out on a date night and you're just going to tell him, oh, I'm so, tell him how you're so concerned, what you're concerned about. And because they knew I was concerned about a lot of things. So I started in, to this date we were having. And I said, oh
Mhm.
my goodness, I'm so worried about this and this, and then this happened. And I was retelling what had happened to him in my side of the story. And it's so funny because
Mhm.
he stopped me in such an organic way. And he said, Kara, sweetheart, in the scope of life, does any of this matter? And
Mm.
I was gobstopped. I didn't know what to say because it was so true and accurate. And it was almost like you're in an improv and somebody's saying no in the improv. And I sort of like looked to the table and thought, well, no, but it's reality television. What are you
Right.
doing? Snap out of it. So there was that. Um, what was your other question? How did it impact my?
Did Are you still friends with some of the castmates?
Oh, everybody always wants to know that about, when they go away on the girls' trip, they always want to know, are the sisters talking, things like that. So the thing about my castmates and myself is, as I said, it was a challenge casting it, and none of my friends were cast on the show. So
Mhm.
my life didn't intersect with my castmates' life before, and it hasn't since. Toronto is a big town, third largest city in North America after New York and LA.
Mhm.
So no, I wouldn't say I'm not friends with them. I wasn't friends with them before. We didn't end on the best of terms.
Mhm.
And, I have run into them at social functions and
Mhm.
very friendly. Hello, how are you? Wish them all the success. They're doing different businesses and things like that.
Mhm.
Absolutely. But are they, one of my four quarters? Are they in my circle? No.
Mhm.
But they
Okay.
weren't before, and so it's not, it's not like, oh, you guys broke up a friendship because of this reality show. Literally, I didn't know them at all before, so I knew one as an acquaintance through a third party.
Hmm.
But it's
Okay.
always
All right.
interesting. It's always interesting to see that because the producers did cast three friends on the show,
Okay.
which is tricky because if you cast three friends, you have to think about it. That really becomes one person because think of, for example, yourself. If it was
Mhm.
you and your sister and another person that were cast on a show and then you were
Right.
thrown into this arena, Well, you might off camera say to your sister, "Why did you say that? Don't say that next time when we're on
Right.
camera." But on camera, you're not going to say that to your sister.
Of course.
So it was a tricky dynamic.
Of course. All right. Well, thank you for giving us the insight and the tea and the inspiration and all of just your story and who you are, and definitely dropped a lot of gems through this conversation. And once again, for those who are tuning in, this is your girl, Cami Simmons, on the Trensetta Lounge with novel author of Most Hated, Kara Alloway, tuning in all the way from Toronto, Canada. And also, folks can get the pre-order of Most Hated on Amazon.com. You can also scan the QR code right there on your screen if you're tuning in with us here on Roku TV. And you can head on over to that site to get your pre-orders up until May 30th. Also, Kara, how can
And
folks
Cami,
stay tapped in? Mm-hmm.
oh, I was going to tell you also on Thursday, the 20th of April, and then on for a couple weeks, everyone can also go to Talk Shop Live and Google Kara
Okay.
Alloway, Most Hated on Talk Shop Live, where I will be selling signed copies of the book, which is kind of fun.
Ooh,
So you can
okay.
get a signed copy of the book, Talk Shop Live,
Nice.
Kara Alloway.
Nice. Well, you all heard it right here on the Trendsetter Lounge, right here with Kara Alloway. How can they stay tapped in with all that you're doing and all that you will continue to do, Kara?
They can find me on Instagram or Twitter at Kara Alloway with a K, Kara Alloway, Alloway. They can find me at my website, karaalloway.com, or just Google Cami Sims and say, "Hey, Cami, what's Kara up to?"
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for checking in with us over here in the Trendsetter Lounge, Kara. This has been such a pleasure chatting it up with you on the Trendsetter Lounge. We really do appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun, and I love your questions. I love when I do an interview and people ask me questions I haven't heard before. It really gets me thinking.
I love it. And you're so welcome. Thank you so much. And for those who are tuning in, make sure you head on over to First Class TV's YouTube channel to catch up on the full length of this interview and also catch up with our other exclusive interviews. You definitely don't want to miss out. We'll be back with more Trendsetter Reports here with your girl, Cami.